you. I am his family, and you will not take this from me.
And Marcus had been Marcus.
Marcus had been paying them for 20 years.
They buried my husband on a Tuesday, and by Wednesday morning, his family was measuring my living room for new furniture. I'm 76 years old. My name is Dorothy, and I've seen a lot in this life. Raised 4 children, worked 30 years as a school secretary, buried both my parents and now my Marcus. But nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared me for what his father said to me at the graveside while dirt was still falling on my husband's casket. "Dorothy," Gerald said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "the property reverts to blood family now. That's how it works." I stood there in my pale blue dress, the one Marcus always said made my eyes bright, and I felt every pair of eyes in that cemetery turn toward me. His brother Donald nodded slowly like Gerald had just announced the weather. Marcus's cousin Linda whispered something to her husband. And me. I just held my purse tighter and tried to remember how to breathe. "Hey, family. Quick question for you. How does this new voice sound in your ears? Is it comfortable? Clear? Easy to follow? If you love it, please hit the like button and drop a quick comment so I know I'm on the right track. If it's not your taste, don't hesitate to tell me in the comments too. Your feedback is what helps me adjust and grow. And if there's another voice style you'd love me to try, just say it. I'm here because of you, and I've stayed consistent because you keep watching, correcting, and supporting me. Let's keep growing together. Let me back up just a little bit, so you understand how we got here. Marcus and I met in 1968 at a church picnic in Richmond, Virginia. He was 23, working at his father's construction company. I was 20, fresh out of secretarial school, wearing a yellow sundress and carrying my mother's potato salad. He asked if he could walk me home. I said yes. 3 months later, he proposed under the oak tree in Jefferson Park, and I've never regretted saying yes to that man, not once in 41 years. We built our house together in 1985, a modest 3-bedroom with blue shutters on Maple Avenue. Marcus did most of the work himself. I painted every room, chose every curtain, planted every rosebush in the front yard. That house wasn't just property. It was us. It was every Saturday morning pancake breakfast, every Christmas with our kids, every quiet evening on the porch watching the sun go down. But Marcus's family never quite warmed to me. His father Gerald ran the family construction business like a kingdom, and he'd always wanted Marcus to stay close, stay dependent, stay under his thumb. When Marcus chose to branch out on his own in 1983, Gerald barely spoke to him for 2 years. And when Marcus used his own savings to buy our land and build our house, Gerald called it a waste of good money on a woman who didn't bring anything to the table. I heard him say it. Marcus thought I was in the kitchen, but I was standing right in the hallway, and those words burned themselves into my memory. Still, we kept peace. We showed up for family dinners. We smiled. We brought casseroles. We played nice because that's what Marcus wanted, and I would have walked through fire for that man. Marcus died of a heart attack on a Sunday afternoon. He was in the garage organizing his tools, and I was inside making lemonade. I heard a crash. By the time I got to him, he was already gone. The paramedics said it was quick, massive, nothing anyone could have done. The funeral was planned by Gerald and Donald before I even had a chance to think straight. They chose the casket, the flowers, even the pallbearers. I was too numb to fight. I just nodded and signed whatever they put in front of me. At the service, Riverside Baptist Church was packed. Marcus knew everyone, contractors, neighbors, people from the hardware store, old friends from high school. Pastor James gave a beautiful eulogy about Marcus's kindness and his steady hands. I sat in the front row, holding a tissue, trying not to collapse. And then we went to the cemetery. That's when Gerald made his announcement. "Dorothy, the property reverts to blood family now," he said, his voice firm and final. "That's how it works. Marcus never updated the deed properly. It's in the family name, which means it goes to me and Donald. We'll handle the estate. You don't need to worry about all that legal mess." I looked at him. His face was stone. Donald stood beside him with his arms crossed, nodding like this was all perfectly reasonable. "What?" I whispered. "It's already decided," Gerald said. "We'll give you time to pack your things. A month, maybe. We're not heartless." People were staring. I could feel it. Marcus's cousin Linda looked away. Our neighbour, Mrs. Patterson shook her head, but didn't say a word. Nobody defended me. Nobody stepped up. I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask how they could do this to me at my husband's grave, with the dirt still fresh, with my heart still bleeding. But I couldn't find the words. My throat closed up, and all I could do was nod once and turn away. They thought I was weak. They thought I'd just go along with it. And for 3 days, I didn't know what else to do. I moved through those days like a ghost. People brought food I couldn't eat. Cards piled up on the kitchen table. I couldn't sleep in our bedroom, so I stayed on the couch, staring at the ceiling, replaying Gerald's words over and over. On the 3rd day, I went out to Marcus's workshop in the backyard. I don't know why. Maybe I just wanted to feel close to him. The workshop still smelled like sawdust and motor oil. His tools were hung neatly on the pegboard. His coffee mug sat on the workbench, still stained from his last cup. I sat down in his chair and cried, and that's when I saw it. Tucked under a stack of old invoices, behind a box of screws, was a small blue checkbook I'd never seen before. It wasn't from our joint account. The bank name was different. First Union Trust, a bank across town that we'd never used. My hands shook as I opened it. The first entry was dated September 2003, a payment of $1,500 to Gerald Thornton. The memo line said, "Settlement." I flipped the page. Another payment. March 2004. $2,000 to Donald Thornton. Memo. Family agreement. Page after page. Payments to Gerald. Payments to Donald. Sometimes both in the same month. 20 years of payments adding up to over $200,000. Friend, before I tell you what else I found in that checkbook, please tap subscribe. Stay with me, so you'll see what happened when I finally spoke up. The last entry was dated 2 weeks before Marcus died. $5,000 to Gerald. The memo line was blank, but Marcus had written something in the margin in his shaky handwriting. Last one. I'm done. I sat there holding that checkbook, and I realized something. Marcus had been paying his family for 20 years, and I had no idea why, but I was about to find out. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at the kitchen table with that checkbook spread open in front of me, a notepad beside it, and I added up every single payment Marcus had made to his father and brother over the last 20 years. $234,000. That's what Marcus had given them. More than $250,000, paid out quietly, steadily, month after month, year after year. Money I never knew was leaving our accounts. Money we could have used for our grandchildren's college funds. For the new roof we kept putting off. For the dream trip to see the Grand Canyon that Marcus always talked about but said we couldn't afford. I felt sick. And then I felt angry. But anger wasn't enough. I needed answers. And I needed help. The next morning, I called my daughter Rachel in Atlanta. She's my oldest, a high school principal with a sharp mind and no patience for nonsense. "Mama, you need a lawyer," she said the second I told her about the checkbook. "Don't talk to Gerald. Don't talk to Donald. Don't sign anything. Just find yourself the best lawyer in Richmond and let them handle this. She gave me 3 names. I called all of them. The first 2 couldn't see me for weeks. The third was Patricia Chen, a property and estate attorney who'd been practicing for 15 years. Her secretary said she had an opening that afternoon at 2 o'clock. I took it. Patricia's office was in a brick building downtown, 3rd floor, with big windows overlooking Broad Street. She was younger than I expected, maybe 45, with short black hair, glasses, and a handshake that meant business. "Mrs. Thornton," she said, gesturing to the chair across from her desk. "Tell me everything." So I did. I told her about Marcus's death, about Gerald's announcement at the funeral, about the checkbook I'd found. I laid it all out on her desk. Every page, every payment, every cryptic memo line. Patricia didn't interrupt. She just listened, taking notes on a yellow legal pad, her face getting more serious with every page she turned. When I finished, she looked up at me. "Mrs. Thornton, do you have any idea what these payments were for?" "No," I said. "Marcus never mentioned them, not once." "And your home? Do you know whose name is on the deed?" I hesitated. "I always assumed it was both of ours. We built it together. We paid for it together." Patricia nodded slowly. "We need to find out. And we need to do it fast, because if Gerald's already making claims to the property, he's not going to wait around for you to figure things out." She made 3 phone calls right there in front of me. 1 to the county clerk's office, 1 to First Union Trust, 1 to a private investigator she'd worked with before. Then she looked at me with something like respect in her eyes. "Mrs. Thornton, I'm going to be straight with you. If your husband was making payments like this for 20 years, it's either blackmail, extortion, or some kind of coerced settlement. Either way, it means your father-in-law and brother-in-law were taking advantage of him, and if they think they can take your house too, we're going to prove them wrong." I felt something shift inside me. For the first time since Marcus died, I didn't feel small. I felt ready. 2 days later, Patricia called me. "We need to meet," she said. "I found something." I drove straight to her office. When I walked in, she had papers spread all over her conference table. Property deeds, bank statements, copies of checks, and a thick manila envelope with Marcus's name on it. "Sit down," Patricia said gently. I sat. "First, the good news," she said. "Your house is in your name, not Gerald's, not the family business. Yours and Marcus's, jointly held with right of survivorship. That means the second Marcus passed, it became yours automatically. Gerald has no legal claim to it whatsoever." I felt my whole body sag with relief. "Then why did he say—" "He lied," Patricia said flatly. "He was counting on you not knowing the law. He figured you'd be too scared or too grief-stricken to check. He'd pressure you into signing it over, and by the time you realized what happened, it'd be too late." My hands curled into fists. That man looked me in the eye at my husband's grave and lied to me. "Yes, he did," Patricia said. "And it gets worse." She slid a stack of bank statements across the table. "These are from First Union Trust, the account Marcus used to make those payments. I got copies going back to 2003. Every payment your husband made matches up with a deposit into accounts controlled by Gerald and Donald." "But why?" I asked. "Why was Marcus paying them?" Patricia opened the manila envelope and pulled out a single piece of paper. It was old, yellowed at the edges, dated 1983. It was a contract. "This," Patricia said, "is a loan agreement. When Marcus left the family construction business to start his own company, Gerald loaned him $50,000 as seed money. But look at the terms." I leaned forward and read. The interest rate was 18%. The repayment schedule was brutal. And at the bottom, in small print, was a clause that said if Marcus ever defaulted, Gerald would have the right to claim any property Marcus owned, including future real estate holdings and business assets. "This is legal?" I whispered. "Barely," Patricia said. "It's predatory and it wouldn't hold up in court today. But back in 1983, Marcus signed it, and for 20 years, he paid it. He paid every single month, even when it meant draining his savings, even when it meant lying to you about where the money was going." I felt tears prick my eyes. He was protecting me. "Yes," Patricia said softly. "He was. And 3 weeks ago, he made his final payment. Look." She pointed to the last entry in the checkbook, $5,000 to Gerald. And Marcus's note in the margin. "Last one. I'm done." "He paid it off," I said. "He paid it off," Patricia confirmed. "And that's not all." She reached into the envelope again and pulled out a handwritten letter. The handwriting was shaky, but unmistakable. It was Marcus's. "We found this in a safety deposit box at First Union," Patricia said. "Marcus opened the box 2 years ago. This letter was the only thing inside." I took the letter with trembling hands and read, "If you are reading this, I am gone. I want it known that I have paid every cent I owed to my father, Gerald Thornton, and my brother, Donald Thornton. The debt from 1983 is settled in full as of this date. I also want it known that my home at 4217 Maple Avenue, Richmond, Virginia, belongs to my wife, Dorothy Mae Thornton, and no one else. She built it with me. She earned it with me. It is hers. Asterisk, 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 asterisk. If anyone tries to take it from her, fight them. She deserves better than what my family has given her. Asterisk, asterisk. Marcus Thornton, April 15th, 2023. I couldn't breathe. I just held that letter and cried, because even in death, Marcus was still protecting me. Patricia gave me a moment. Then she said quietly, "Mrs. Thornton, we have everything we need. The deed is in your name. The debt is paid." Marcus left written proof of his wishes. Gerald and Donald have no case. But if you want to stop them from ever trying this again, we need to confront them, publicly, on record. We need to make sure they can never do this to you or anyone else. I looked up at her. My tears had dried. My hands were steady. "What do I need to do?" Patricia smiled. "We call a family meeting, and we bring every document, every receipt, every statement, and every word of Marcus's letter. We lay it all out, and we watch them try to explain themselves." I thought about Gerald's face at the funeral. I thought about Donald's smirk. I thought about all the people who'd stood there and watched them humiliate me and said nothing. And I thought about Marcus, sitting in his workshop, writing that letter, knowing he might not be here to defend me himself. "Set it up," I said. Patricia nodded. "Where do you want to do this?" I didn't even have to think about it. "Riverside Baptist Church," I said. "The fellowship hall. That's where Marcus and I got married. That's where we celebrated every anniversary. If his family wants to take something from me, they can try it in the place where we made our promises to each other." Patricia Chen looked at me with something I hadn't seen in anyone's eyes since Marcus died. Respect. "I'll make the calls," she said. The meeting was set for Saturday afternoon at 2:00. Patricia sent formal letters to Gerald, Donald, and every member of Marcus's immediate family, his cousins, his Aunt Phyllis, even his brother-in-law Tom, who never said much but always seemed to be watching. The letter was short and direct. "Family meeting regarding the estate of Marcus Thornton. Attendance requested. Legal counsel will be present." I didn't sleep much the night before. I kept going over everything in my mind, the checkbook, the payments, Marcus's letter. I kept imagining Gerald's face when he realized I knew. Part of me was terrified. Part of me couldn't wait. Saturday morning, I put on the same pale blue dress I'd worn to the funeral. I did my hair. I put on the pearl earrings Marcus gave me for our 30th anniversary. And I looked at myself in the mirror and said out loud, "You are Dorothy Mae Thornton. You are 76 years old. You have buried parents, raised children, and loved a good man for 41 years. You are not afraid of Gerald Thornton." Then I drove to Riverside Baptist Church. Patricia was already there when I arrived, setting up at the long table in the fellowship hall. She'd brought 2 file boxes full of documents, all organized with colored tabs. Everything was labeled. Everything was ready. "How are you feeling?" she asked. "Like I'm about to walk into a fight," I said honestly. "Good," Patricia said, "because you are. But you're walking in with the truth, and that's the strongest weapon there is." People started arriving at 1:30. Marcus's cousin Linda came in first, looking nervous. Then his Aunt Phyllis, leaning on her cane. Tom arrived with his wife, both of them quiet and unsure. Our neighbour Mrs. Patterson came too. She'd heard about the meeting through the church and asked if she could attend as a witness. I told her yes. At 10 minutes to 2, Gerald and Donald walked in together. Gerald was wearing a dark suit, his silver hair combed back. His face set in that same hard expression he'd worn at the funeral. Donald was beside him in jeans and a button-down shirt, his arms already crossed like he was ready to argue. They saw me sitting at the head of the table with Patricia beside me, and Gerald's eyes narrowed. "What is this, Dorothy?" he said. "Sit down, Gerald," I said. My voice didn't shake. "We need to talk." "If this is about the house," Donald started. "Sit down," Patricia said, her voice sharp and professional. "Both of you." They sat. Slowly. Reluctantly. But they sat. When everyone was settled, Patricia stood up. "Thank you all for coming," she said. "My name is Patricia Chen, and I'm Mrs. Thornton's attorney. We're here today to address some serious claims that were made at Marcus Thornton's funeral regarding his estate and property. Specifically, the claim that Mrs. Thornton's home would revert to the Blood family." Gerald cleared his throat. Now that was just a misunderstanding. "It was a lie," Patricia said calmly, "and we're going to address it. Mrs. Thornton, would you like to begin?" I stood up. My legs felt steady. My heart was pounding, but my voice came out clear. "Most of you were at Marcus's funeral," I said, looking around the room. "You heard what Gerald said to me at the graveside. He told me the property reverts to Blood family. He told me it was already decided. He told me I'd have a month to pack my things." I looked directly at Gerald. "You made me feel like I was nothing. Like 41 years of marriage meant nothing. Like the home Marcus and I built together was never really mine." Gerald started to speak, but Patricia held up her hand. "Let her finish." I reached down and picked up the blue checkbook. I held it up so everyone could see it. 3 days after the funeral, I found this in Marcus's workshop. It's a checkbook from an account I never knew existed. And inside, I found 20 years of payments Marcus made to Gerald and Donald. Payments that added up to over $200,000. You could hear people inhale. Aunt Phyllis put her hand over her mouth. Linda's eyes went wide. "I didn't know why Marcus was paying them," I continued, "so I hired Patricia to find out, and this is what we discovered." Patricia opened the first file box and started laying documents on the table. Bank statements, copies of checks, deposit slips. "In 1983, Patricia said, Gerald Thornton loaned his son Marcus $50,000 to start his own construction business. The loan came with an 18% interest rate and a clause stating that if Marcus defaulted, Gerald could claim any property Marcus owned, including future real estate. She laid the loan contract on the table. This is predatory lending. It's barely legal. And Marcus spent 20 years paying it back, even when it meant hiding money from his wife, even when it meant sacrificing their savings and their future. Gerald's face had gone red. That was a legitimate business arrangement. It was extortion, Patricia said, and you used it to control your son for 2 decades. But here's what you didn't count on. She laid down the final payment record. 3 weeks before Marcus died, he made his last payment. The debt was settled, paid in full. And then he did something very smart. Patricia pulled out Marcus's letter and read it aloud. Every word, in front of everyone. When she finished, the room was silent. Aunt Phyllis was crying. Linda looked horrified. Mrs. Patterson had her hand on her chest, and Gerald just sat there, his jaw clenched, staring at the table. So let me be clear, Patricia said, her voice cutting through the silence. The house at 4217 Maple Avenue is legally owned by Dorothy Thornton. It has been since 1985, held jointly with Marcus, and upon his death, it passed entirely to her by right of survivorship. Gerald Thornton has no claim to it. Donald Thornton has no claim to it. The debt Marcus paid for 20 years is settled. And any attempt to intimidate Mrs. Thornton into giving up her property is not only morally reprehensible, it's legally actionable. She looked directly at Gerald. Do you understand? Gerald's hands were shaking. He opened his mouth, closed it, then finally said, We were just trying to help. You were trying to steal, I said. My voice was louder now, stronger. You took money from your son for 20 years. You made him feel like he owed you something for the rest of his life. And when he died, you thought you could take from me too. Donald stood up suddenly, his chair scraping loud against the floor. This is ridiculous. That house should stay in the family. I am the family, I shouted, and I felt something break open inside me. I was Marcus's wife for 41 years. I cooked his meals, I raised his children, I held his hand when he was scared, and I kissed him goodbye every single morning. I am his family, Donald, and you will not take his home from me. The room was dead silent. Donald looked at Gerald. Gerald looked at the floor. And then, quietly, Aunt Phyllis spoke up. Gerald, she said, her voice shaking, you should be ashamed. Marcus was a good boy, and Dorothy has been nothing but kind to this family. If you try to take that house from her, you'll have to go through me too. Linda nodded. And me. Tom cleared his throat. Me too. I watched Gerald's face crumble. For the first time in all the years I'd known him, he looked small. I didn't know he was paying that much, Gerald said quietly. I didn't know it was hurting him. Yes, you did, Patricia said. You knew exactly what you were doing, and you would have kept doing it if Mrs. Thornton hadn't found that checkbook. Gerald didn't answer. He just stood up slowly, his hands braced on the table. Come on, Donald, he said. We're leaving. Donald hesitated, looking at me, then at Patricia, then at his father. Finally, he followed Gerald out of the fellowship hall. The door closed behind them. Nobody spoke for a long moment. Then Mrs. Patterson stood up and walked over to me. She took my hands in hers. Dorothy, she said, you are the strongest woman I know. I started crying then. Not sad tears, not angry tears, just tears of release, of relief, of finally being seen. Patricia packed up the documents while people came over one by one to hug me, to apologize for not speaking up at the funeral, to tell me they were proud of me. When everyone had left, Patricia and I stood alone in the fellowship hall. What happens now? I asked. Now? Patricia said. Now you go home. You live in your house. You take care of your garden. You spend time with your grandchildren. And if Gerald or Donald ever contact you again about the property, you call me immediately." I nodded. "Thank you, Patricia, for everything." She smiled. "Thank you for trusting me and for standing up for yourself. A lot of people wouldn't have." I drove home that evening as the sun was setting. The sky was orange and pink, the way Marcus always loved. I pulled into the driveway of our house, my house, and I sat there for a moment, just looking at it. The blue shutters, the rose bushes, the porch where we'd spent so many evenings together. This was mine, not because I'd fought for it in court, but because Marcus and I had built it together, and because love doesn't end just because someone dies. I got out of the car and walked up to the front door. I unlocked it. I stepped inside, and I was home. Friend, thank you for staying with me to the end of this story. It wasn't easy to tell, and I know it wasn't easy to hear. But if you've ever felt small, if you've ever been dismissed or underestimated, I hope my story reminds you that you are stronger than you know. Strength isn't about never falling down. It's about getting back up, even when your knees are shaking. It's about finding your voice, even when you're scared. It's about standing in your truth, even when everyone else is telling you to sit down and be quiet. If this story touched your heart, please hit that subscribe button. Drop a comment and tell me what part spoke to you the most. And if you know someone who needs to hear this message today, share it with them. I've got another story picked out for you. It should be on your screen right now. It's about a woman who thought she'd lost everything until she found something worth more than money could ever buy. I'll see you there, friend. And remember, you are stronger than they think. You always have been.